TLDR, no, they're bloody awesome. But let me qualify my video title. Back when I was a boy, I remember going into a music shop and seeing a strange silver mouthpiece behind the glass. I asked about it and was almost immediately greeted by a unified chorus of shop attendants telling me things like, the only thing consistent about them is their inconsistency. They're great if you want to make your saxophone sound like a kazoo. They're made of a strange soft metal called silverite that might even have lead in it. The mouthpiece behind the glass obviously was a Dukoff. And after that I didn't really think much more about it. I thought, well, these just must be no good, and sort of wrote them off. Until I heard that Clarence Clemens used to play one, and David Sanborn, and even Michael Brecker. Michael Brecker played a Gardala, everybody knows that, you don't know anything about saxophone.
And the mouthpiece is presently a Dukoff D9.
But anyway, these great players couldn't all be wrong, right? So I did a bit of research, and I think I see where some of the suspicion about these mouthpieces comes from. First of all, Dukoffs are molded. That means that they sort of lack an inherent precision that CNC machined or hand-faced mouthpieces can have. I say can have because another thing that people misunderstand about hand-finished mouthpieces is, no human is perfect, and that's partially what makes handmade pieces special, but it doesn't necessarily make them better than ones that aren't. That said, Dukoffs are known to be one of the least consistent mouthpieces available. I think a lot of that has to do with the material that it's made of. It's made of something called silverite, which, as I mentioned before, no one's quite sure exactly what it is, but so far as anybody's been able to assess, it's pretty much pewter. As such, it is a very soft metal, and you really do have to take care of it to keep it in good condition. I think another side effect of that material being so soft is that it encourages people to work on them at home, to try to change the facing or alter it in ways that obviously is not particularly precise. I have never played a stock Dukoff that was unplayable. All of the ones that I've gotten that were really tricky to work with were ones that people had obviously tried to reface on their own. In terms of complaining about a Dukoff sounding too bright, that would be a bit like getting ice cream and then complaining about it because you're lactose intolerant. And I do think Dukoffs get a little bit mischaracterized. They are very bright mouthpieces, but they're not quite as two-dimensional as I think everybody makes them out to be. Now, if you're playing in a section where you really need to blend, or an orchestral setting that requires very precise control, this might not be an ideal setup. But when it comes to pulling raw power out of the horn, I think the design is pretty much unmatched. It's easy to see why so many contemporary saxophonists have played a Dukoff at some point. A question that comes up a lot is whether or not a Dukoff is a Miami Dukoff or not. Early on in the days of producing these silverite mouthpieces, there was a stamp at the bottom of the shank that says Miami, Florida. It just indicates a specific period of time that these mouthpieces were made, and to be perfectly honest, the design process hasn't changed enough over the years to make it a particularly important distinction, in my opinion. Some Miami Dukoffs are fetching insane prices online, especially the Soprano D8, which is perhaps best known as the mouthpiece Kenny G plays. But like I mentioned before, the molds and the designs haven't really changed since then. I do believe the silverite material is a component in how these mouthpieces sound, but because of all the backroom modifications and damage that probably occurs to these mouthpieces when they aren't cared for properly, you may have to search around for a bit before you find a good one. Maybe even look into getting one that's been refaced, but when you get a good Dukoff, they are really, really good. So I hope that clears the air about one of my favourite modern mouthpiece designs. If you have a strong foundation and a good concept of tone, I think Dukoffs can give you a lot of extra power in your sound. In fact, I've even heard people say that a good Dukoff beats out a vintage Gardala. That remains to be seen. Do subscribe to me here on YouTube if you enjoyed the video, or join me sometime over on Twitch. I'll see you guys soon.